Hi OBSers, happy week 5. I'm Melissa Taylor and I'm so happy to be able to spend just a few minutes with you today. This isn't going to take long, but there's something I want to talk about. And Uninvited this week, we're reading the chapter called The Enemy's Plan Against You. I believe that would be chapter 12. That's right, 12, 13, and 14 this week. But the chapter is called The Enemy's Plan Against You. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that for a few minutes today. You know, we don't like to talk about enemies, right? Enemies aren't fun. Enemies don't bring life. Enemies actually steal from us. They rob us of something. And their plan, and if you have an enemy, whether right here in this real life or in this world, then you know it's not something that makes you feel real good. It's stressful. It's not something you want to deal with. Well, we have an enemy in this world, and you know, you might look at somebody in real life as being your enemy. You might look at an opposing team as an enemy if you're into sports. But we have an enemy much bigger than any of those things, and his name is Satan, and he's the exact opposite of what God does for us in life. And I know it's kind of hard to talk about that. It's like, who wants to talk about the devil, right? I can't see him. Is he real? He is real. And I want to tell you what he does best. He gets into your head. Those lies that you hear about yourself, that you believe about yourself, they're not from God. They're from your enemy. Someone might say something to you that's kind of negative, and 10 people might say something to you that's positive. What do you remember? So naturally, we can park on the negative, and that can take over, and then it can magnify and get bigger. The enemy, Satan, the devil, he loves that because that keeps you from being close to God, and he doesn't want you to be close to God. Okay, so in the chapter called The Enemy's Plan Against You, Lisa talks about getting a promise for my problem. In other words, if you have a problem or you have an issue that you're dealing with, one way, in fact, the best way to overcome it is by finding a truth that can be greater than that problem. The best truth you can go to, it isn't even in your best friend. Well, unless Jesus is your best friend, which that's good, right? Yeah, it's in here. It's in the Bible. And God has given us so many truths. And when we can keep our mind parked there, we can overcome those lies. You know, replacing the lies with the truth, that's not a new concept. There have been many books written about it. There have been many chapters written about it. We have talked about it. We've done a whole conference call series on replacing the lies with the truth. And that's because if we can get our minds parked on the truth, we can overcome anything. And in chapter 12, that's exactly what Lisa TerKeurst teaches us. She says, lies flee in the presence of truth, and the devil turns powerless when our minds turn to our all-powerful God. That's on page 154. She goes on to say, I want a promise for my problem of feeling empty. I want a promise of my problem of feeling deprived. And I certainly want a promise for my problem of being rejected. And she gets us into God's word to overcome that. A verse that I refer to a lot when I'm doing some teaching, I've taught this to my kids, and I use this a lot when I'm doing some Bible teaching. It's John 10:10. And I think John 10:10 was the first time I really realized, wow, what the enemy does, but what Jesus can do that's greater. John 10:10 says, the thief, our enemy, comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And this is Jesus talking, okay? Jesus is talking. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come so that you may have life. And not just okay life, but life to the fullest. And that's what Jesus brings us. If we're ever going to get over our rejections of the past, we have to invest some time into God's word so that we can get this into our heads and actually overcome those things that the enemy does to us, because he has a plan against us, but his plan will not prevail if we are staying in God's word and we're believing God's truth. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you guys today. Hope you're having a great week in week 5 of our Uninvited online Bible study, and hope you have a great day. See you guys soon. Bye.